No home runs on this podcast. We're working station to station. Back for episode number 31, and we have just finished a series versus the Tampa Bay Rays. I am back with my co host and battery mate, Dustin. And today, our guest is Krager, who is going to join us and talk a bit about this series. First, Dustin, can you give me some thoughts on what you felt going into this series and just how you're feeling coming out of it?
Always trepidatious going into the Trop. As most Blue Jays fans know, it's not been kind to us. But I was hopeful, and I think we talked a little bit about on um, the end of the last show with the predictions that I was kind of, optimistic. It seemed like the guys were playing good ball, and it seemed like they had an opportunity to really put together a good series, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, this for whatever reason, this place has been a house of horrors for us for years. I don't know why. I mean, they've just always had the Jays number. So to go in there, I mean, we really should have won all three games, but we talk about that later. But yeah, we almost came out with a sweep, and two out of three ain't bad. That's for sure, especially at the Trop.
All right, well, let's go into the rundown now. I thought there was a lot of positives in this series. Game number one, one of I guess, the common themes throughout the series is that we see Tampa Bay jumping out to a lead. And in game number one, it is a 1-0 lead off of Chris Bassett. But what we'll also see is that in each of these games, the Jays have a big inning, and that big inning came in game one in the top of the sixth, where we have a Springer single, a Bo RBI single, which drives in Springer. Then we have a Vladdy walk, a Kevin Biggio walk to load the bases, Kirk walks, walking in a run, and then there's a pitching change. But after that, following is a Matt Chapman hit by a pitch, and Dalton Varsho, big swing in this game. He steps up and hits a two RBI single, and that inning ends 4-1. The Jays bullpen pretty much held out in this one, and they end up going on to win 6-2. I know Dalton Varsho hasn't really had a great year for the Jays, but I thought he was especially good in this game. Two hits, one run, two RBIs, and he had an insurance home run in the ninth inning. Uh, Dustin, good way to start the series off on Friday night.
Absolutely, yeah. It was never a really kind of tentative game. It seemed like the guys were putting together good at bats. Like you said, Varsho had a good day there, and just a good all around win, kind of a good palate cleanser to kick it off. And uh, I felt like after this game that my optimism was warranted. I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, like to go in there and beat these guys at the Trop is phenomenal. And in our favor too is that I think Tampa's got. Let's be honest, they got a lot of injuries, and they got some guys in there that aren't household names that we all have known as Blue Jay fans for years. So now's a good time, I guess, a good time to catch them when maybe they're banged up and beat up a bit. So we were able to pull that off in game one.
Yeah, they're a little bit of a mash unit. Even today, they had some scary you know moments there. I think their baseman kind of came up lame a little bit. So I mean, maybe
I
that
did,
bodes
yeah,
well
no,
for us meeting them in the playoffs.
yeah, no. I just mean overall, like their pitching. Like I know Shane McClanahan, like Shane O'Mac, I think went down with an injury
Yeah.
not too long ago, and the beginning of the year they lost Jeffrey Springs for the whole year. He's a good up and coming pitcher. Yeah, just I think they got some other. I think a Rosarina's hurt right now,
hmm
so yeah, maybe
I
we
think
caught him
their
at a good time. And
Low got hurt this series, and
yeah,
then so they're a little banged up.
I think they're a little banged up, so we might have caught him at a good time. So
All right, let's go to game two. I think this one's probably the wildest of the series. Um, we saw Ryu take the bump against Littell. The Rays would kick things off in the bottom of the first, as they are wont to do. They hit two home runs, bookended around two walks, leading to a early 4-run lead. They would tag on another home run in the fourth, and meanwhile, Littell would be carving up the Jays at least, through the first 5 innings. Um, in the sixth, however, the Jays would come to life. They put together a nice 2-out rally off the back of George Springer and Vladdy and Biggio. Um, I think this was kind of when you were talking, Al, about the the team that we were promised. This is the team. This inning I think looked like it a lot, and they would kind of replicate that more throughout the series. I think as well. In the eighth, the Jays would get some help from the Rays bullpen, as again with 2 outs, some wild pitches, a hit batter, and a couple walks would allow the Jays to take a 6-5 lead. And then, unfortunately, in the ninth, Schneider would bring in Romano after a day after getting 4 outs in game one, and he would blow the save and the game. I guess wanted to hear from you, Kreger and Al. You know, your thoughts on this move. It seemed like there was a lot of consternation and questioning this move among the fans this morning.
I don't know. I was okay with Romano coming in, but it seemed evident after a few pitches that he didn't have his best stuff, and he was battling some kind of problem with his fingernail or a blister. I mean, I remember Schneider and Pete Walker come out and he told him, he's good. It's not a problem, but he just kept throwing batting practice fastballs and sliders that were hanging, and it was just like base hit after another, one after another. So yeah, I don't know what issue he was dealing with his finger, but there was something bothering him. It seemed to affect things. So
I didn't have a problem with him coming back after a 4-out save on
yeah,
Friday. Uh, I unfortunately didn't watch this inning. I think I was kind of listening to what happened.
oh
Uh,
yeah, I watched it.
actually, you're gonna laugh at this one. So I'm all amped up. Jays take the lead. Everything's
Yeah,
going well, and it's my turn to put my kid to bed, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
go
yeah,
off and I leave the door open and I tell my girlfriend, hey, can you update me as to what's going on? So, we're
yeah.
reading a couple stories and whatever, and he's having some milk. Anyway, so whatever, Tampa Bay walks it off. And I am disappointed. And literally not 60 seconds later, my kid pukes all over me. Like, right? So
That's
so it's like the night went from, oh well, let's
yeah,
hope the Jays come back to tomorrow, to just like, what the absolute hell is going on? It was just like, like that, following that bottom of the eighth, it just went to shit for me.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the
when
interesting part of that just before that was because I have him in fantasy. Fairbanks came in, and the guy's usually money, right? And
Yep.
yeah,
yeah, I'm drawing a blank on his first name right now, and I got him in fantasy too. I don't know, Fairbanks, right? He's a weird looking
sure,
guy with the googly eyes.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
he came in, and uncharacteristically, he was walking guys. He hit a batter, like he just completely blew that game. It looked like for Tampa. The Jays took the lead. We got Romano coming in. I thought, oh my God, they're gonna somehow win this game that they really had no business winning. And then yeah, Romano just didn't have it, and it was a really heartbreaking loss. So I don't know what you
Yeah,
thought.
Well,
I kind of thought they probably should have pulled him after he gave up
Yeah,
the tie. Like they tied it
yeah.
up, pulled him, and but Schneider's kind of manager. He like once you get on his good side, once he trusts you, he kind of just rides you until it's like almost beyond what most
Romano
people.
did tell him that he was good. There was a mound visit, and he
Yeah, I know.
refused to like he tried to talk Schneider out of it, and I guess apparently did so. So
Yeah, but that's
Well,
Romano. Like that's the way he is. He's kind of like a gamer, right?
Yeah.
Well, and if we're talking about the Jays bullpen, it is quite strong now. But
Oh,
if we're
it's very
talking about
strong.
we're talking if we're talking about pitchers who can face anybody, right? Because a lot of the
Yeah.
pitchers in the Jays bullpen, while they're good, they're like more situational guys, right? Obviously Tim
Yeah.
Mesa and other pitchers. But
Yeah.
Romano's obviously he's a guy that just gets thrown out there whenever. So he's kind of held in quite high regard. And I do think there's a trust
Yeah.
level that between the closer and the manager has to have, and he just unfortunately didn't have it. Now
Yeah.
going back to
Yeah.
that eighth inning though, it I don't know if you guys noticed, but it was like a mirror image of the game prior. So game one we have a Vladdy walk, a Cavan Biggio walk, a Kirk walk, and then Matt Chapman gets hit by a pitch. So in the net
Hmm.
Yeah.
in game number two, you have a Vladdy walk, a
Oh
Biggio
yeah.
walk, and then Matt Chapman gets hit by a
And
pitch again,
yeah, and
Oh
that
wow.
and
right?
that
Yeah, I didn't.
yeah,
I didn't.
and that was all Fairbanks, their top closer
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the
and
second game.
I felt bad for Matt Chapman. I haven't really felt terribly bad for him this year, but I felt bad. The guy doesn't wear an elbow patch, like, or he doesn't wear an elbow
No,
pad, I should say,
no, he doesn't.
and he
No,
gets
no.
pegged. He gets pegged twice in 2 games. So,
Yes.
um, yeah, I think if you're gonna take, if I was in that clubhouse, if you're gonna take the positives from that game, I do think there is a lot of positives. Like throughout the series, the Jays had pretty good at bats. They were quite patient. They were able to kind of just sit there and wait for their opportunities. Were obviously disappointing, but I think just even clawing back into that game, has to give you some at least confidence that you can do something against this bogey team that is Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
Now,
it was a tough loss, but it's the kind of loss you don't, it's not embarrassing,
no, and I'd probably rather lose this way than get the doors blown off 10-0, right?
Right, exactly.
but yeah, there
All
were
right.
positives. Like the rest of the bullpen, in the series was real good. Like Richards was excellent today. Yimmy had some good moments. Like overall, that this bullpen is a really good bullpen. There's a lot of options, and Hicks. Don't forget Hicks. So I mean, it's probably the best Jays bullpen for depth we've had in years.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned his name, Kreger. I think Trevor Richards is kind of back to his kind of earlier season form. He did have some rocky outings the last few weeks, but I think
Yeah,
he's found something in the past few days where he's had some pretty good appearances.
yeah. I mean, what's amazing about him is like Buck was saying today that you know he just eliminated his curveball from his repertoire this year, that was getting him into trouble last year, and he's pretty much fastball changeup, and the changeup is devastating. It just baffles hitters, and he's
Yeah.
literally surviving off these two pitches, and it's working magic. Like there were some pretty ugly swings today that the Rays were taking on him. So good to see him. Like you said, he's sort of back in form again.
All right, let's talk about game three. So again, in game three, Tampa goes up early in the bottom of the first. In this case, they score 2 runs. In this one, it was a pretty wild game, but I think the good thing, the Jays instantly responded in the next half inning with 5 runs of their own. So we got a Kirk walk, a Varsho double. Witt hits a 2 RBI single right up the middle. Kiermaier singles, and then I think the swing and maybe play of the game was a George Springer inside the park 3-run home run.
Yeah,
This one had me on my feet because and I think what I enjoyed most about it was that George Springer thought he hit like like a home run that was over the fence because he was jogging
Yeah.
to first, and then
Yeah.
somehow he kicks it into gear, and you know what, those lucky bounces and
Yeah.
instances that we didn't
yeah,
get early in the year, well, the ball bounces in the right direction and away from the center fielder, and he ends up
You're
scoring
right.
on his inside the park home run. And I think a lot went right in this series after
Yeah.
many games where it just seems like luck goes wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Baseball's funny like that. It happens like that. It's all the things are going right, and then sometimes all the things are going wrong.
And the Jays do. I didn't mention the score, but they scored four more after that top of the second, and they ended up going on to win 9-5. I mentioned Springer, so he had one run, one hit, three RBIs, and one home run. I don't think we've talked about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. yet, but he had a pretty good series, and in particular this game, two runs, two hits, two RBIs, and that was all on two swings, which were two solo home runs.
Yeah, I mean, this was just another kind of like a playoff atmosphere kind of game. I mean, it was great to see the
Yeah,
boys put together some big runs. I thought sort of my takeaway was that the big boys were doing it right.
yeah,
Vladimir Guerrero had two home runs. Springer had a big night, both on the offensive side, but he was also made a great play in the outfield. I mean, a great catch and a great kind of throw that
yeah.
gunned someone down at second base.
Oh, the guy was
Um,
out by a country mile.
oh yeah, so an absolute, Varsho got a triple. Just and Bo Bichette homered. So all the big guys that you want to see
Yeah,
getting hot, doing their thing,
yeah.
just did it. And hey, man, love to see it and keep it going. We got to face these Rays for another 3 games later in the series, and the way it's looking on the scoreboard or on the standings, that there may be a Tampa Bay Blue Jays wild card game in the future.
Well, I think I just want to add, like, I think going into this next series now, I think I read we only need to win 3 out of the next 6 against New York and Tampa, and we're in.
The Jays, of course, win the series 2-1 and improve to 87 and 69. Let's do some scoreboard watching. And the Jays did play well in this series, but they also did have, I think, pretty much an ideal situation with their rivals and what happened in their series. So Texas and Seattle were facing off in their first of two series to end end the season, and Texas ends up sweeping Seattle. So Seattle gets nothing from that series, and the other team that a couple weeks ago you figured they'd probably go on to win the division, but they kind of backed their way back into this wild card picture. Houston got swept by the Kansas City Royals. So
Crazy.
I didn't, yeah, like totally crazy.
Yeah,
And this is the same team that the Jays swept. What, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think I saw something on Twitter. Basically the Blue Jays got a lot of help. I think they said something like out of 30, meaningful games that happened over the last week or so, 21 out of those 30 went the Blue Jays' way in terms of helping them
yeah.
towards getting a playoff spot. I did a little bit of um, a little playoff math here, or at least I searched something on Twitter. But as Kreger pointed out, yeah, 3 wins guarantees the playoffs. So 3 wins or better in the next 6, you're guaranteed. So the earliest clinch we could get is probably Wednesday if we sweep New York. If they go 2-4 in the next 6, they still have a 99.8% chance of making the playoffs. The only disaster scenario that would have to happen for them to not make the playoffs there would basically be Houston takes 2 from Seattle and 2 from Arizona, while Seattle takes that 1 from Houston and sweeps the Rangers. And then the Rangers take 2 out of 3 from the Angels and then get swept by the Seattle. That would give all 4 of those teams 89 wins, including the Blue Jays, if they go 2-4. And because the Blue
And
Jays
then
don't have
yeah,
any tiebreaker, then they
that's
lose
right.
in that scenario. So that's
So
basically the only
Dustin,
scenario that would have them out of the playoffs if they went 2-4.
Dustin, can I stop you for a moment? So they don't have tiebreakers against Seattle and Texas. I do believe they actually have a tiebreaker against Houston, and we've not. I don't think that's
Oh,
even been
do they?
mentioned. Yeah, I don't think it's been mentioned because Houston's not really been like they've kind of
But I
been,
think,
in
but I
the
think
the divisional lead. So.
I'd have to look at it. But I think in that scenario where all three of those teams have 89 wins, Houston may have the tiebreaker against those other two
Oh,
teams, putting them
yes,
in their
yes,
division series,
very good point.
right? And
Uh,
then I think if the Jays went 1-5, they still have a 90% chance of winning a playoff spot. And even if they went 0-6, they have a 53% chance of making the
uh,
playoffs. So really good chances. They've done well over the last 6 games to really clinch it. But I'd rather see them popping champagne on Wednesday than be biting my
but
fingernails.
they already announced the sale of the playoff tickets. I think
Well,
it's Wednesday or
sweeping the
something.
Yankees to clinch a playoff spot would be oh so
Oh my God.
satisfying. I like oh man like that that has me a little
Yeah. Have you ever?
feeling
Have,
warm all over that
yeah.
thought. And Dustin, if the playoffs started today, the Toronto Blue Jays would head off to Tampa Bay as the second wild card, and would they be unfortunately on the I guess the wrong half of the bracket because the winner of the Tampa Bay uh, second wild card goes on to face Baltimore as it stands right now.
Well, after this series, I'm almost wanting them to play the Tampa Bay if they play like this. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that is a rough route to the playoffs. But you know, uh, hey, you can't uh, you can't win a World Series without playing good teams. Like you're not going to get an easy route no matter what you do. So hey, I'd rather go through Tampa and Baltimore and get there on merit than be called like you got lucky with your draw or something like that.
Well, I think you just have to get in. I don't think we can pick where we finish or anything like that. I don't that doesn't really work. And plus, if we did do that, we'd probably end up getting I don't know swept by Texas or something like that. And something on the karma in the world wouldn't just wouldn't be right. And yeah, so. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Dustin, can you leave me with a prediction for the upcoming week? Uh, do the Jays get in the playoffs, and when do they do it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say they sweep the Yankees. The Yankees just got mathematically eliminated today, so they're gonna be maybe not trying too hard. And yeah, let's sweep the Yankees at home, pop some champagne in the Yankees' face. That'd be my prediction.
That would be so sick. I'm gonna say that they're gonna drop one of these Yankees games because this nothing is ever easy for the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays, and I think they will clinch. I'm gonna say the Friday of the Tampa Bay series because I think a bunch of results will go their way and they'll clinch the playoffs and everyone will be looking forward to heading to the Trop, I guess, the following week. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me.